I'm going to do a video today on 10 things that you may not know about me. And I will try not to get too long-winded about things. Just a couple of people have asked me for this, and the reason that I haven't done it so far is because I can never think on the spot. I can never think. So I do have my bullet journal here in which I have taken some notes, and when I'm looking down, that's what I'm reading. Okay. So the first fact or story is about my nickname. So when I was moderating, which is Chewy, by the way. So when I was moderating on Children of Artemis website, which some of you may know, I was one of the main moderators for quite a while. Back, fado. And my handle on there was Tailtiu. So it's Tailtiu. And Tailtiu was the Firbolg queen who fostered Lugh and queen goddess, sovereignty goddess. And the reason that I chose that name as my handle was because my very first public pagan demonstration thing was when I was 18. I was asked to represent the goddess Tailtiu in kind of a protest. This is all part of the same thing. This is still point number one. Same story. It's part of a protest about the proposed moving of land around the site of Tailtiu, which has fantastic mythological significance. Of course, it's the site of the first Lunacy Games and various other kind of associations and stories with it. And a woman called Chris Thompson, who I didn't know at the time, but some of you may know her from story archaeology fame, storyarchaeology.com. Herself and Isolde Carmody run Story Archaeology, which is fantastic. If you've never come across it, go to storyarchaeology.com and listen to the podcast and read the blog. So Chris wanted to do a dramatic, dramatized protest, if you like, rather. And she needed somebody to play the goddess Tailtiu. So I had just met up with Barbara Lee, who was my very first, my Wicca mammy. I was only 18, and we did a dramatic procession, if you like, a ritual procession almost, to or around the site. And it was covered by an Irish TV program called Nationwide, like a news program, which is very popular here. So that was how I came by the name Tailtiu. But when I got online and moderating on what was largely an English and even American forum, nobody could pronounce Tailtiu. Or very few people could pronounce Tailtiu. So I would spell it out phonetically, and typing in my little chat box, and it ended with Chew, Chew. So people who knew me well started to call me Chewy. And I actually still have some friends from those days who occasionally refer to me by that nickname. And so that kind of progressed into, people would come into the chat rooms and onto the forums and see me being referred to as Chewy and presume that it was, ask me about it, presume that it was something to do with Chewbacca from Star Wars. And I would, make hilarious jokes about, being tall and hairy, and nobody could really ever understand me. So that was how I got my nickname. So that is fact one. The rest will be a little bit shorter. Fact two, or story two, thing 2, is that, back in those days, from then, it was quite early that I was involved in the pagan scene. So I did my first international teaching presentation at around the age of 23, and I wrote my first book at the age of 25, Irish Witchcraft from an Irish Witch. So those are kind of interesting little factoids that I was quite young when I did that. I'm 40 now, so that was a while back. Before that, thing 3 is that I trained and worked as a body piercer. I ran my own shop before, I think I opened it on my 25th birthday. So that was my first like official business venture. A little bit after that, fact 4, I worked as a bouncer and security in nightclubs, which was actually very interesting work. I'm quite kind of guardian orientated, so I actually really enjoyed that work, and it is definitely something that I would consider if I ever needed to pick up like a part-time gig or that. I would definitely go back to that. Fact 5, somewhat related to that, is that I am, for people who know me online and not in real life, I am quite tall. I come from a tall family. I'm the eldest of 4 siblings, and my sister is the only one who's shorter than me. So I am 6'2". I don't know what that is in centimeters, sorry, meters. But that is quite tall for a girl, even though I identify as NB, non-binary, or gender fluid to be precise. That's kind of like a fact 5A maybe, but yeah. So fact 5 is about my tall family. My brothers are taller than me. My father, who has just died, rest in peace, he was 6'9", so tall family. And again, a related fact is that my children are quite tall as well. I have 3 children, so people might hear me talk about my son, who is 13, who lives with me, and I have 2 older girls as well, so you may not be aware of that, who I love very, very much. All 3 children, obviously. So I'm going to move on to number 7, which is maybe somewhat child related, because I was that mother who would drag them around to historical sites and do all sorts of and festivals and all the rest of it, because I was involved both professionally and personally. I was involved in living history, medieval reenactment, and Gaelic or Celtic or occasionally Viking reenactment. And so I am trained in and experienced in medieval cookery, a little bit of medieval herbalism, and setting up camp and in canvas tents and all sorts. And I didn't just do the living history side of things, I'm also spear trained. Now a little bit out of practice and probably very unfit, because I haven't done it in a year or two, but a couple of years actually. I did go back to it briefly, but my body let me down, so I had to stop the training. But hopefully I'll pick it up again. So I am actually spear and sword trained. And this is proper, not live blades, but iron and, old steel. So number 8 is that I have a pet snake, and this was again related to the previous, because I was at a medieval festival. I was actually running a medieval festival in Tulsk in County Roscommon, and we were in the process of building a castle front with scaffolding and boards on the front of it, so that the fighting could proceed. And I get a phone call from the daughter of a friend, and she says that she's just moved into a house, and the guy that moved out before her has left a snake behind. So now I'm trying to think what year this would be. I don't even know, 2010 maybe, 2011. And yeah, so I drove up to Carrick-on-Shannon and collected snake and tank. So he is a checkered garter snake. He's incredibly traumatized still. They didn't treat him very well in the house that he was in, and he's never really got used to being handled. I can handle him, of course. He's not that big. So I can handle him and do when necessary, but I tend to leave him alone because he gets very stressed out. So I did have other snakes before, who I could handle and wear. I had a fantastic boa constrictor called Isabella many years ago, and she was absolutely gorgeous. And I used to let her hang out quite a lot, but this is a small snake that I don't handle very much. Unrelated to snakes, we have number 9, and that is that I am absolutely fascinated by Land Rovers. And I'm not a car person at all. I would have to think quite hard to tell you what kind of a car that I drive. Like an Opel, maybe, something. It's just a small petrol car, but don't really give a crap about cars generally. But for some reason, I absolutely love Land Rovers still to this day. And I used to write because I was a journalist, and a freelance writer, and I used to write for Land Rover magazines in the UK. And I learned how to drive in an old Series 3 long wheelbase Land Rover. And I drove many Land. I used to have a Discovery. I had the use of a pickup for a while, which was even older than the Series 3 that I learned how to drive in, and I just loved them. And I loved the older the better, the bigger the better. I actually originally learned how to drive, started to learn how to drive in trucks, in big 40 ton trucks. So every time I get into a small car, I kind of have to reset my brain that, you know, this is not a boat you're driving, and, you know, you need to get in the mental mindset for the smaller car still to this day. So yeah, absolutely love Land Rovers. And number 10, it's kind of a little bit of a teachy one, maybe on Irish heritage specifically, is that I have no degree, no third level degree. I have studied at third level. So I have certification. I've studied art and art history and a little bit of drama and psychology. I studied psychology in NUI Maynooth. And, you know, got to a certain level, but I don't actually have my degree, and for various reasons, but I am self-taught. And the reason that I wanted to put that as number 10 is because a lot of people get quite intimidated about, you know, when I talk about being focused on the academic side of Irish heritage and spirituality, and, you know, look into the lore, and it can be a little bit overwhelming if you're not used to dealing with, like, especially if you're having to kind of look up papers or academic websites and try and kind of find your way through all that if you're not used to dealing with, with that kind of third level education stuff. And I just want to tell you that you can learn it, and it doesn't take, especially if you're in the States, it doesn't take 50, 100, 200 grand of a college degree or diploma or, masters or anything, to be able to really get in depth and study Irish literature and the fantastic scholarship that's available on, the Irish lore that we have. So dig in, I suppose. So if you have any questions on any of that, post them in the comments below. And if there's anything you would like to see in future videos, please do let me know. So hopefully that was good for you. Like and subscribe, and like and subscribe. And I'm doing daily content. Some of it's over on my blog, so you'll find a link to that below, and some of it is here. Most of it is here on YouTube. So do follow along and join the mailing list so you get notifications.